Nationers, here in America, football is a national treasure, and with this weekend being the Super Bowl between the Chiefs and the Eagles, I wanted to look at a video by Keystone Productions titled, How Football is Shot for Television Broadcasts. If you guys know me, I love logistics. I love to learn the inner workings of systems like this, especially for television broadcasts. Not every single game is televised, but I love to know if they are, what do they do to make that movie magic happen? Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and let's get right into it.
He's got to have it right now. And they
Here
take
we
a
go.
downfield
Oh
shot.
my goodness, I watched
And the
this
catch
play
is made.
live.
It's
This
Ryan
play
Williams.
was crazy.
First and
That little
three.
pirouette, oh my goodness.
Touchdown Alabama, they answer in one play.
Only for
For a
JoJo
long
to go
time,
down and
American
score.
football has been a leader in the U.S. sports broadcasting
That's true.
market,
Has.
with the NFL being the most
Russell
watched
Wilson,
league in the country and
George
the largest league by
Pickens.
revenue in the entire world. When you consider
sir.
that the NFL plays nearly
the
300
backwards,
games
yep.
a year, plus
Yep.
almost another 1,000 for Division I college football
We're just watching
alone,
highlights at this
it's
point.
easy to see why football has become such a significant piece of the sports television market.
That's true.
Today we will be breaking
You mean to tell me that those yellow lines, they don't go out there and paint it every time?
down the essential camera positions used in
Right,
these
okay.
broadcasts, their standard numbering, and what their operators are assigned to shoot.
Okay. Yeah, because you probably don't want like everyone like filming the exact same thing. I'm sure
As
like
I
multiple
say
cameras
in all
do.
of these
but
videos,
I could get
please
what they
keep in
mean.
mind that every broadcast is different. Every director has their own preferences on
yeah, I get that we're
numbering
the
and
director,
camera
producer, all that
assignments,
good stuff.
And relatively larger and smaller broadcasts will make use of cameras differently, but I'm going to do the best that I can to sum up my experiences in the 10 years that I've been shooting football as a professional camera operator.
Dang, okay.
So with
He's
that out
got
of the
some
way, let's
okay,
get
he's got
started.
some reps. I
Cameras
love to
1,
see it.
2, and 3.
Okay.
The up cameras. In most sports, there is a single game camera assigned to
Okay.
cover all the important game action from a wide angle,
Right.
typically high above the field of play.
The wide shot.
In sports like
soccer.
basketball, soccer,
Okay.
and hockey, this is the camera that the viewer will be seeing most throughout the vast majority of the broadcast.
Okay.
Since the pace of play of football allows for directors to cut around to different cameras between nearly every snap, multiple game camera locations are used in order to get that camera as head-on with the line of scrimmage as possible, depending on where it is on the field.
Oh, right.
These
Yeah,
cameras
especially
are
with
typically
football.
numbered
Okay.
1, 2, and 3.
That makes a lot
and
of
are
sense.
located on a centralized camera deck or decks at the left 25-yard line, 50-yard line,
Yep.
and right 25-yard line.
That makes a lot of
respectively.
sense. Yep.
The assignments for these cameras can be a little bit tricky to follow, but stick with me here.
They
To make
seem
this
pretty easy,
easier,
I
we're
would
going
say.
to divide the field into 3 different sections using
Okay.
the 30-yard lines.
Right.
And we're going to call these zones A, B, and C.
Okay.
Each camera is tasked with traditional game camera responsibilities when the line of scrimmage is within that camera's zone.
Okay.
When initially framing for game
Right,
action,
yeah, I see this.
the camera operator should include all 11 players on the offense, with
Okay.
the deepest players in the backfield essentially backing up to the edge of the frame. Most of the
Okay.
defense will be in this shot as well, but deep safeties and corners do not necessarily need to be shown every single play. Once the offense has been
Imagine if they
established
zoom
and if
out
the
to see the
receivers
deep
are
safety.
spread really wide on the line of scrimmage, it can be acceptable to push past either the top or bottom grouping of receivers as long as you do so in its entirety before the snap.
Okay.
Once the play begins, the operator will slowly push towards the pocket, following a run or pass as the play develops.
Ooh, okay.
When the play is over, the operator will push to the hero of the play, typically never getting tighter than head to toe in order to allow the director to make a tighter cut to a different camera.
Okay.
Once the
That's
director
cool.
cuts
That's cool.
away from the game cam, the operator will widen out back to their traditional game framing to allow the director to see the offense get set up while they cut around using different cameras between plays.
Oh, that's really cool. I guess it would make sense because, like myself, as a football fan, I've watched plenty of games. That makes a lot of sense with the segmenting that they're talking about, the framing that they're talking about, and then what he just described, where they almost like splice, kind of like a highlight reel. Maybe they show a coach, people interchanging off to the sideline. Maybe they obviously have insert points from the commentary, and I'm sure that there's audio cues are coming in as well. So it makes sense. Like I trust this guy, and I feel like he knows what he's talking about, especially because what he's describing makes sense.
When the line of scrimmage is not in the zone for any given up camera, they will have one of another pair of responsibilities.
Okay.
Typically, these 2 other cameras will either be responsible for shooting ISO shots of a specific receiver or group of receivers, or what we call pit framing. And pit framing is typically a shot of the offensive and defensive lines, as well as all of the offensive players in the backfield.
Would make the pit. That would
This
make
is
a lot of
essentially
sense.
a tighter version of the game camera that will also follow passes and runs as the play develops.
These are the highlights.
ISO or
Okay.
isolation framing is exactly what it sounds like. The operator simply follows a receiver or receiver grouping, pushing towards the player that's actually going to catch the ball if the ball is thrown to a receiver within that group. To explain how each of the two non-game camera up cams know which of the other pair of assignments they're responsible for, let's go back to our zones. Typically, the pit camera will be whichever camera is behind the play and closest to the game camera, and the ISO camera will be whichever camera is left.
But what about if it's
For
in the
example,
middle?
when the ball is going camera
about if
left
it's
to
in two?
camera right and is currently in zone C,
Okay.
camera 3 will obviously be our game camera,
Yeah, yep.
2 will be pit, and 1 will be the ISO.
Okay.
If the ball is here in zone B
Yes,
and
okay,
moving
yep.
right to left, 2 will be game,
Yep.
3 will be pit, and 1 will
That
be
makes
the
sense.
ISO.
You always have defense.
If,
okay.
however, the ball is
Whichever way.
backed up to an end zone, let's
Yep.
say here in zone A, then 1 will be our game cam, 2 will be our pit, since it's still closest to the line of scrimmage, though not
Right.
behind, and 3 will be the ISO.
Okay. Cool.
Before we move on from the
And then
up
they slowly
cams,
just
let's
shift,
talk
I
about
see.
some other responsibilities that these operators have. Between plays, the non-game cameras should be helping the director with shots of the far side coach and bench area, excited
Tracking
fans
the
in the
coach
crowd,
crashing
or
out.
hero shots of players that just made key plays
Yes,
or that
sir.
the announcers are otherwise discussing. If a flag happens prior to the snap, the game camera will typically be responsible for making a slow, gentle push to the white hat referee in order to get a shot of him making the call. If, however, a flag happens during or after a play, camera 2 is usually responsible for quickly getting to the white hat ref and getting a tight shot for the director to cut to.
Right.
Camera 2
okay.
is also usually responsible for game framing on all punts and kickoffs, while
That's cool.
cameras
I like
1
that.
and 3 will shoot either the kicker or punter or returner, depending on who is on the opposite side of the field in order to get the most head-on shot possible.
Okay. that's
Finally,
cool.
the last note that we'll cover is that after a touchdown, whichever camera was the game camera for
Yeah.
that play will be
Okay.
responsible for sticking with the hero, usually until the next drive. That way, the director always has a chance to cut to a reaction shot of that player as they celebrate on the bench with their teammates.
Okay. That's cool. So it
Camera
could be
4,
also one if it's like
high
a
end zone.
90-yard like
Next,
touchdown.
let's cover the end zone cameras, starting with
Okay.
high end zone. This camera is
Okay.
positioned behind either the left or right end zone, usually on a roof, concourse, or camera
Oh,
platform,
this is for, like, field
depending
goals.
on the build
Okay.
of the stadium.
That makes sense.
Camera 4 will be positioned as centered on the uprights as possible, as this camera serves as the game or play-by-play angle for all field goal attempts.
Right.
On
Right,
most
right,
smaller broadcasts where only one high end zone camera is used, this will include field goals on both the near and far side of the field.
Oh, okay,
During
that makes
gameplay,
sense.
this
Why?
operator will
Okay.
be responsible for shooting medium game action, typically starting their framing to include all of the backfield and the entire offensive and defensive line for
Okay.
later use in replays.
Especially with
As
a
the play
sack.
begins, the operator will follow the ball wherever it goes, but will typically not get any tighter than head to toe on the ball carrier because
nice.
this is a great replay angle to determine whether or not a player went out of bounds along the sideline.
Okay.
This medium framing also works great for telestrator replays as it offers a great view to see how a play develops. Between
that makes
plays,
sense.
camera 4
Yeah,
will
yeah,
get
yeah.
shots of whichever team is facing them at that point in time, as well as crowd shots, hero shots, shots of the near side bench and coaches, because they have a much more direct look at that near side than any of the up cams.
Okay.
Camera
That's cool. I
6,
like that.
low end zone.
Okay.
So we're going to skip to camera 6 here
Right.
because that's our low end zone, which will be placed on the opposite side of the field from camera 4. This camera will be placed on a camera platform or in a camera well at field level and will typically be aligned with the near side hash marks. During gameplay, the camera 6 operator will shoot tight game action, giving the producer a variety of great replay angles for all different types of plays.
Oh, that must be so rough if you
Between
miss the
plays,
angle.
just like
you
camera
got to be
4,
really good.
Camera 6 will be responsible for shooting shots of whichever team is facing them at that time, as well as shots of the near side bench and coach.
Right.
This operator is typically given the most creative freedom of all of the hard cams in
Oh.
a football broadcast, which
The one probably with the most responsibility in terms of like touchdowns and if they're inbounds, if they catch the ball or if they don't catch the ball. Has the most creative freedom.
Makes it a ton of fun to run. Camera 5.
Okay, so
Cart
now we're
cam.
going back. We went 1, 2, 3.
Now let's move
4,
on to my personal
6, and then
favorite
5.
camera,
Okay.
the cart cam. This camera is built on a pedestal on a
there he
specially
is.
designed cart, which is independently driven by a
That's so cool.
specialized cart driver. It will typically be located on the near side of the field behind the bench area and will move left to right along the length of the field, depending on where the ball is at any given time. Typically, directors
Not gonna lie, I would hate to have seats like right there. That would be so bad. Having this camera just constantly obstructing your point of view of the game.
will have the cart camera line up on the first down marker for each play. This offers a great
God,
replay
that's
angle
so
for
funny.
official reviews to determine whether or not a player successfully got a first
Oh,
down. When the
yeah,
ball
it's
is in
like
the
the
red
Josh
zone,
Allen.
however,
Right,
the cart will
right.
typically line up on the goal line, much for the same reason, to offer replay angles of close plays on the goal line.
Oh, that makes so much more
Similarly,
sense.
if a ball is backed up to a goal line, typically within 1 to 3 yards, the cart cam will line up on that goal line, offering a reviewable angle of potential safeties. Before we get into the weeds
Okay.
and the assignments of this camera, it's really important to note how crucial communication is between the cart cam operator and the cart's driver. The operator will typically
Yeah.
be set up with a separate line of communication in order to be able to talk to the cart's driver directly.
Oh, that's
The
good.
operator has to be both clear and decisive, directing the driver on when to move and where exactly to be positioned. Since the cart is capable of moving at relatively quick speeds, it'll usually be accompanied by several security guards and utilities, ensuring the safety of the driver, the operator, and everyone else on the sideline. The primary responsibility for Camera 5 is the quarterback. The operator should
Okay.
know where the current offense's quarterback is at all times, getting shots of them before, during, and after plays. As a play is about to begin, the operator will frame everyone in the backfield as well as much of the offensive line. A good rule of thumb is to keep the quarterback or the deepest running back to one side of your frame and the closest defensive lineman to the other. Unlike most of the other cameras, this camera will not actually follow the ball on most pass plays, but instead will do what we call quarterback protect, which is essentially keeping a shot of the quarterback in case they get hit after the throw. This will
okay.
also allow for the director to make a quick cut to a reaction shot of the quarterback after a big play, an incompletion, or an interception. There are, however, a couple of exceptions to this rule. When there is a screen or a short pass in the direction of the cart camera, the operator is typically given the freedom to follow the ball on that play so long as the quarterback isn't in imminent danger of getting hit. Also, if the ball is in the red zone and the cart is lined up on the goal line, the operator will typically be allowed to follow any pass.
Ooh, okay,
On running
that's
plays, however, the cart cam is free to follow the ball at all times. On field goals, directors will usually have the cart cam get tight shots of the
It must be super confusing if like a team is drawing like play action, pump fake to screen, that comes back and then that becomes a run, like trick plays. I'm sure like anyone doing this for like the Detroit Lions this past season has had a nightmare of a time every single time that they've had to film it.
hold or the kicker to be used in replays or for reaction shots. Though the cart camera can certainly help out with other hero shots and shots of the crowd, their primary responsibility is always going to be the quarterback, so it's rare that too many extra assignments will be given.
Okay.
Camera 7, handheld. Last but certainly not least, let's talk about the handheld.
I would hate to
camera.
have the handheld
Prior
for
to
a
this
3
point
hour
in the
plus
video,
game.
all the cameras that we've covered have been what we call hard cams,
And of course,
which are
before
mounted
and after.
on tripods or camera pedestals. The final camera that we're going to cover in depth, however, is a
Look at
handheld
the
or
snazzy
shoulder-mounted camera. Much like the cart camera, the handheld will be positioned on the near side of the field and will move from left to right depending on where the line of scrimmage is located.
Okay.
I've most often seen directors prefer that the handheld line up 15 yards past the line of scrimmage or as close to that as possible. Since in most levels of football, the camera operator is not allowed to actually be in front of the bench area, they will have to jump further down the field in front of the play in order to avoid this restricted zone. When the
Right.
ball is in the red zone, the handheld will typically line up with the back pylon, offering a great look for close plays in
Ooh.
that corner that might be close to the sideline or the back of the end zone. As far as framing is concerned, the handheld will typically shoot play-by-play game action, much like the low end zone or
Very
the cart
nice.
camera, and will pretty much follow the ball on all plays.
Very
Given
nice,
its
very
flexibility
nice.
in terms of location on the field, Camera 7 will also be responsible for getting a lot of unique shots as well. For example, the operator may be responsible for shooting team runouts at the beginning of the game,
And then get
interviews
trampled.
with coaches and players, shots
Okay.
of the cheerleaders on the sideline,
That makes sense.
and close-up shots of fans in the crowd.
Whoa!
Though it can be pretty physically draining to carry a 10-plus pound camera around on your shoulder for an entire football game, this camera can be really fun to run and offers a ton of creative freedom.
Oh, but the hard part, you gotta have like somebody running cord like the entire time. Oh man, you know when you see those people and they're just like, that's what I feel like that's what they do, especially when they have to hustle. Like after the Super Bowl, that's gonna happen. Let the cord drop, run it, go. Don't worry about anything else. Go. Oh man, that's gonna be so rough. I wonder if they train that. I'm sure they probably train like the like pick up real quick and then also doing like the the run out where they're letting it go. Oh man.
Other cameras.
Okay, other cameras.
As I said at the beginning
Very
of this
nice.
video, the number of cameras on any given broadcast can vary heavily depending on the size of the show. Most shows at all levels will have a couple of other very important cameras that we haven't covered yet. First is the booth camera, which is typically a stationary shot of the talent or announcers in the broadcast booth. This shot is usually framed against a backdrop or the venue itself and will be used for the show's open and any other on-camera segments. Most broadcasts will also include some sort of beauty camera, which is usually just a wide shot of the entire venue
Right.
that will mostly be used as a background for large graphics. On larger broadcasts, a variety of additional cameras will be added as well. This could include additional high and low end zone cameras, which will be placed on the opposite sides of the field of the ones that we already covered, or it could be an additional handheld, which will likely be put on the far side of the field.
Well, and then also
Very large shows will also include a lot of
Skycams
specialized
too.
cameras.
Skycams too. Yeah.
This could include a jib, which are often used for a lot of unique reset or crowd shots. You may also see pylon cameras, which are small cameras mounted inside of specialized pylons
That makes sense.
sit on the goal line. It can also include sky or spider cams, which are
right.
cable-mounted cameras that can offer the viewer a very unique vantage point. Football is one of the most entertaining and dynamic games that you can watch on TV.
It really
and there's
is.
so much that goes into making these broadcasts happen. Hopefully this video gives you a bit of insight into a small piece
Keystone.
of the sports production world. If you enjoyed this
100% it did. I feel like I now know the logistics of how a football game is ran, the reason for it. I mean, I get to see it all the time, but how he describes it makes a lot of sense. Hope that you guys did learn something as well. Let me know down in the comments if there was anything that shocked you in the handheld, the other cameras, how they set up, the logistics of football games. Nonetheless, thank you guys so much for watching. Subscribe!